Everyone knows the pyramids of Egypt. They're symbols of power, of eternity, of divine kings who touch the heavens. But what if I told you these monuments, the pride of ancient Egypt, were also its greatest mistake? What if Egypt's golden age, its unmatched prosperity, art, and architecture ended not because of war or invasion, but because it literally ran out of stones? Because in the ancient world's greatest building boom, Egypt spent its wealth and its future on piles of rock. This is the story of how the pyramids bankrupted Egypt. A civilization that built too much, too fast, and paid the price for eternity. To understand the stone boom, we need to go back over 4,500 years to around 2,700 BCE, when Egypt was still finding its identity. The Nile had given Egypt everything: fertile land, predictable floods, and easy transport. In a world of chaos and drought, Egypt was a miracle of stability. But that stability came at a cost: central control. The pharaoh wasn't just a king, he was a god. His word wasn't law, it was nature. When he commanded, rivers were diverted, temples built, entire cities moved. And at the heart of this divine order was one idea: the pharaoh must live forever. That idea, immortality through stone, would reshape Egypt's economy, labor, and landscape. It would give birth to wonders like the Great Pyramid of Giza, but it would also sow the seeds of its collapse. The story starts humbly with King Djoser, around 2630 BCE. He wanted something more permanent than the mud brick tombs of his ancestors. So his architect, Imhotep, yes, the real historical figure, later turned into a Hollywood villain, came up with a radical idea. Stack mastebis, the traditional flat tombs, one atop another reaching for the sky. The result? The Step Pyramid of Saqqara, Egypt's first monumental stone building. It was revolutionary, not just architecturally, but economically. Because once Egypt learned it could build with stone, it never stopped. Stone was expensive. It had to be quarried, cut, transported, and lifted by hand by tens of thousands of workers. But stone also meant eternity, and eternity became the new luxury good. A pharaoh's wealth wasn't measured in gold, it was measured in limestone. Fast forward a few decades. Djoser's experiment becomes an arms race. Each new pharaoh had to outshine the last. Bigger, taller, brighter. The fourth dynasty becomes the age of ambition and hubris. Sneferu, father of Khufu, takes it to extremes. He doesn't build one pyramid, he builds three. The Meidum pyramid, which collapses. The bent pyramid, which changes angle halfway up, an architectural panic attack. And finally, the Red Pyramid, the first true smooth-sided pyramid in history. Each one cost enormous labor and resources, but the Red Pyramid was a success. And it taught a dangerous lesson. With enough manpower, anything was possible. So when Sneferu's son, Khufu, took the throne, he dreamed bigger. He ordered the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, a mountain of stone so perfect it defies logic even today. The numbers game. It's hard to grasp what Khufu built. Over 2.3 million limestone blocks, each weighing 2 to 15 tons. Total weight, 6.5 million tons. Height, 146 meters, taller than any building on Earth until the 14th century. It took roughly 20 years and as many as 30,000 to 100,000 workers. Think about that. A small city dedicated solely to one man's tomb. And it wasn't just labor. Each pyramid consumed massive agricultural surplus: food, beer, linen, copper tools. Entire regions were redirected to feed the workforce. Farms, quarries, workshops, all under the command of the state. The pyramid wasn't just a tomb. It was a national megaproject, centuries before the word existed. So who paid for all of this? Not merchants, not investors. Egypt didn't have money in the modern sense. Its economy ran on grain, labor, and divine obligation. Farmers owed a portion of their harvest to the state. Craftsmen owed service, and soldiers doubled as builders during the flood season. That system, known as corvée labor, worked only as long as the Nile behaved. When floods were good, Egypt could afford its giant monuments. When they weren't, people starved. Still, the pyramid machine kept running, because to stop was to defy the gods. Each new pyramid drained Egypt's surplus a little more. Each new pharaoh demanded one larger than the last. And as pyramids rose, the kingdom's wealth sank into the sand. The stone economy. Egypt's rulers effectively converted their wealth into stone. Every block pulled from a quarry was like minting a coin, one that could never circulate again. By the time of Khafre, the builder of the Sphinx, and Menkaure, the system was stretched thin. The royal workshops couldn't keep up. The Nile villages couldn't feed the laborers. And the temples, which received land and workers as divine donations, began to rival the state itself. Egypt had entered what modern economists might call a construction bubble, a stone boom. And like every boom, from tulips to tech stocks, it was destined to burst. After Menkaure, something changed. The pyramids suddenly got smaller, cheaper, poorly built. Why? Because the economy was running out of fuel. Khufu's pyramid had consumed entire generations of labor. And the administrative system that managed those projects with thousands of scribes, overseers, and priests had become unsustainable. To maintain the illusion of divine kingship, pharaohs began granting tax-free lands to temples and officials. But every exemption meant less income for the crown and less control over the workforce. Soon, the pharaoh's authority started to erode. Temples owned vast estates, local governors called nomarchs gained power, and loyalty shifted away from the throne. Egypt was still rich, but the wealth no longer flowed upward. The Great Pyramid, once a symbol of eternal order, had become a monument to debt. By the end of the Old Kingdom, around 2180 BCE, Egypt was exhausted. The pyramids still stood, but the state that built them had fallen apart. Records from the time describe famine, chaos, and civil war. The Nile failed to flood. Food supplies collapsed. And without the central government, local warlords took control. This period, known as the First Intermediate Period, was a dark age. Temples looted, tombs robbed. Even royal pyramids were stripped for stone. Egypt, the land of eternal order, descended into anarchy. And the irony? It was all because of the very system that was supposed to guarantee immortality. The Pyramid Age had promised eternity and delivered bankruptcy. Eventually, Egypt recovered. The Middle Kingdom, around 2050 BCE, restored stability under a new line of pharaohs. But they'd learned at least one lesson: no more giant pyramids. Instead, pharaohs built smaller tombs, hidden within cliffs like those in Thebes. They focused on irrigation, trade, and administration. But the temptation of monumental building never disappeared. By the time of the New Kingdom, the age of Ramses and Tutankhamun Egypt was back to building colossal temples, obelisks, and statues. They called it piety, but it was the same addiction, prestige through stone. Each generation borrowed from the next in labor, resources, and faith. And once again, the cycle repeated. A boom in monument building followed by decline. At this point, you might think, well, that was 4,000 years ago. We're smarter now, are we? Because if you strip away the sand and the mythology, the stone boom looks eerily familiar. Egypt's pyramids weren't just temples, they were status projects. Gigantic, expensive symbols of power built on faith and borrowed labor. Today, we call them skyscrapers, stadiums, or space programs. Let's look at a few modern parallels. Economists have noticed a strange pattern. Every time the world builds the tallest building, a financial crisis soon follows. The Empire State Building was completed in 1931 during the Great Depression. The Petronas Towers rose in 1998 during the Asian financial crisis. The Burj Khalifa opened in 2010, right after the 2008 crash. Why? Because record-breaking projects often signal overconfidence and overextension, just like Egypt's pyramids. When a society pours its wealth into symbols instead of systems, the crash is inevitable. The pharaohs built with stone. We build with debt. Instead of quarrying limestone, we print money. Instead of workers hauling blocks, we have nations financing megaprojects they can't afford. China's ghost cities, America's trillion-dollar deficits, Saudi Arabia's neon megacity, all echo the same mindset. If we build something grand enough, history will remember us. But history remembers differently. It remembers who paid the price. Egypt's economy depended on the Nile's floods. Today, our civilization depends on oil, electricity, and data. When that flow is disrupted by drought, war, or shortage, the same dominoes fall: inflation, inequality, collapse. The Nile gave Egypt life, but also dependence. And when nature stopped cooperating, the system broke. Sound familiar? Our modern civilization runs on flows too, of energy, credit, and information. And we're just as vulnerable when they falter. So what do the pyramids really teach us? That even the mightiest civilizations can bankrupt themselves, chasing immortality. That power, once concentrated in symbols, becomes a weight no system can sustain. Egypt's greatest triumph, the Great Pyramid, was also the moment it sealed its fate. It proved what humanity could achieve, and how quickly greatness can consume itself. The Great Pyramid still stands. 4,500 years later, it remains the last of the seven wonders. But the kingdom that built it is gone. Its temples are dust. Its gods are forgotten. Its language once silenced for millennia. All that remains is the stone, a monument not to eternal life, but to human ambition. So the next time we marvel at the pyramids, maybe we should see them not as triumphs of engineering, but as warnings carved in limestone. Because history doesn't just repeat, it rhymes. In sand, in steel, in debt. And the question we must ask ourselves is simple. Are we building our own pyramids right now?